Hello, friends. Welcome to Be and By IAS, and a warm welcome from your guide, Jaspir Singh Bajaj. Today's topic is very important, not only from examination point of view, but for your own knowledge, strengthening the knowledge and understanding about the country's system of governance, which is very important in a vast and a huge territorial state like India, where we have so many different cultures, a huge population, and over above all, it is the diversity of culture, language, race, etc. So, because of this diversity, we and also the slogan that we follow unity in diversity, this particular topic, federalism, becomes extremely important. As from the examination point of view, if you see that there is hardly any year when a question has not been asked in the law optional, that is in paper 1, that is about the features of constitution. There is no separate topic like federalism in our syllabus, but it is enshrined in the meaning of when we understand the distinct features of the constitution, and this is one of the most important features of the constitution of India. So we need to understand it in depth along with the case laws. And as for the other students who are not opting for law optional, this is going to be a very important topic as far as polity part of the general studies is concerned. This will help you not only in the mains examination, but a number of questions can be asked in the prelims also. Let us first try to understand what do we mean by federalism. See, it has been derived from a Latin word which is pronounced like fedus, which means agreement. This is an important term which we will see how we will test a particular setup, a particular system based on the term agreement. So the next unique feature about the federalism is the division of powers. That is, powers have been divided between the center and the states or the provinces. Then it is an institutional mechanism. What do we mean by institutional mechanism? Institutional mechanism is which has been institutionalized. जैसे कि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में इसको कैसे डिफाइन किया गया है, कैसे उसमें इसके प्रोविजंस हैं. Actually, there is no definition of federalism in the Constitution of India, but there are features from which we understand, we interpret that in what manner and to what extent it is federal in nature and character. So basically, it is a mechanism, institutional mechanism, which accommodates two sets of politics. How it is, one is at the center or the national level, and second is at the regional or the provincial level. Now we don't have provinces, we have states, but this term is used in general parlance. Now again, we see the federal system is how it is different from a unitary system. See, there are two terms. One is federalism or federal system, other is the unitary system. Now we will see how in the context of from where these terms have originated and have been understood in the jurisprudence. Now, sovereignty, we have mentioned this term in a number of lectures on different contexts. sovereignty is basically having a free hand, that we will not be ruled by others. We will govern our matters as we wish, whether it is our internal matter or our relationship with the other people or other states or with other nations. And it is constitutionally split. I said institutional mechanism. तो सॉवर्निटी को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली स्प्लिट कर दिया गया. दैट इज दैट काइंड ऑफ ऑटोनॉमी which is enshrined in the word sovereignty has been split between two territorial levels. Territorial levels, that is, one is the union, the central government, which consists of the center and is responsible for the governance of the entire country. But there are states which have their own territory which is demarked for each particular state. So it is a kind of a territorial level, two territorial levels, and has been constitutionally split. So each level can act independently of each other. That means a state is not depending on another state for its own governance. And in a true federal system, the states are not depending on day-to-day governance and major part of governance, except for very, very few areas, limited areas on the center also. So they are independent of each other as far as governance is concerned. Now we'll try to understand a little bit more about the unitary character and the federal character of governance. Now we see this is the UK, United Kingdom, where there is no written constitution, and this will not have federalism. See, a major condition of federalism is that you must have a written constitution. Why? Because some kind of rigidity is there. Right? So that rigidity is missing because there is no written constitution in UK. So it is purely an example of unitary form of governance. Now we take the case of United States of America, USA. Now there is the central government and there are states, different states, Philadelphia, California, like that. Now these states are units which have come together through an agreement and formed a federal system. So USA is an example of federal system of governance, how we will study in detail a little later. Now, federations are basically of two types. We can broadly divide them in two types. One is the holding together federation and other is coming together federation. Now, when we understood the keyword agreement, now in the case of holding together means there is a single unit, the unit of, that is our country India. Okay, now in this single unit there are different units or states which are holding on to each other, not by way of any agreement. They are part of the major system, and they are different units of governance. So they are holding on to each other. They are holding on together to form a single entity, that is our India. Now let us take the example of the coming together federation. That means the units come together, join, and form a single entity, that is in the case of United States of America. So here the units, different units have come together by way of a agreement or a treaty, and they form a single unit. So this is a kind of a different kind of federation. Now, now we come to some important landmark cases where these terms have been further clarified by the judiciary. The essence of federation is the existence of the union and the states and the distribution of powers between them. This has been held in the landmark case of S.R. Bommai. Okay. States therefore have the locus and the interest to contest and seek an adjudication of the claim set up by the union government. What do we mean by that? When there is a conflict. There is a conflict between the entities. It may be between the states or between the states and the center. There is a system of adjudication by an independent and integrated judiciary that we will see later. Now we come to the federal and unitary type of governments. First we take the federal government. As I said, agreement between independent and sovereign units. I am talking of the truly federal characters. I am not, talking of any blend or overlapping. Let us understand the concept of federalism, of federal government in its pure form, in its literal form. Okay, so there has to be an agreement between independent and sovereign units. So there are units who are sovereign, who are independent. They have come together by way of an agreement. So when they enter into an agreement, they have to surrender partially what? Their authority and in their common interest. So when they join together, there has to be some common interest. So in the common interest of forming that single unit, they have to partially surrender some kind of their authority. So vesting it so whatever authority they surrender, it is vested in the union, and बैलेंस जो बाकी बच जाता है, थोड़ा पार्ट उन्होंने अपनी सॉवरेनिटी का, अपनी अथॉरिटी का सरेंडर कर दिया टू द सेंटर, और बाकी का हिस्सा, द रेस्ट ऑफ द अथॉरिटी, दे हैव retained with them. Okay, so they become the constituent units, but after surrendering a part of their authority, they have retained the rest of their authority. Very landmark case of State of West Bengal versus Union of India, 1963. Unitary government क्या होती है? It is a single entity. Single entity means there are no different units who have come together. United Kingdom is a single entity, single government, wherein the central government is ultimately supreme. So the entire authority lies with the central government, as in the case of United Kingdom. So this is, again, I am telling you that federal government, we are talking about the literal meaning of that, and the unitary government is again the literal meaning of that the entire authority is in the hands of the central government. Now we see the evolution of federalism in Indian context. How? See, if we see here, after 1857, the first war of independence, and the Britishers used to call it the mutiny, the Great Mutiny of 1857, but for us it is the first war of independence, 1857. The entire governance of the country was taken over by the British Parliament through an act of 1858. See, whenever it's a kind of a mini constitution for India's governance. Why do we call it mini constitution? Because what do you mean by constitution? Constitution allows us to have an idea about how the country will be governed, what system of governance will be followed, whether it is going to be a democratic system, whether it is going to be a monarchy, a dictatorship, or whatever it is. And who will make the laws? Who will have the authority to make the laws, to implement the laws? Okay, so after that, it was the British Parliament will pass the laws for entire Indian territory, in the state of India. So it was highly centralized and a unitary setup, as in the case of UK. But all India civil services were created, again a unitary feature. How? We will see when we come to our present day structure of all India services. That time, like Indian Police, Indian Civil Service, ICS and IP, okay, the Imperial Police and the Imperial Civil Service were created. So these were the all India services which were created, again a unitary character. Now when we come to the next mini constitution is the Government of India Act of 1919, again passed by the British Parliament, but some element of federalism was introduced. How? A diarchy system was introduced both at the provincial level and some devolution of powers. How? At the provincial level, and some devolution of powers were given to the provinces. So, from unitary concentration of power in the center, now provinces were given some kind of powers. What was the diarchy? Dual system of government. They had the councillors who were appointed by the crown, and they had the ministers appointed by the governor from the elected members. Okay, so they were all appointees. So there was a bicameral legislature, that is two houses were created, upper house and lower house, that is the Council of States and the Legislature Assembly. Now comes another milestone, Act of 1935, Government of India Act of 1935, from where the present constitution has borrowed a lot. So, because this was just before our independence, 1947, this was the Act of 1935. Again, some kind of federalism was introduced by way of what? Larger degree of responsible provincial government. Diarchy system was removed and the measure of autonomy to provinces was enhanced. Okay, so this you will study in your political science subject, but to understand the concept of federalism, I am just telling you how the concept of federalism had evolved, the evolution of federalism as far as Indian system of governance is concerned. So more powers were given to the provincial government. Now, after this act, we have now our Constitution of India, which was enacted and adopted on 26th November 1949, but which came into operation from 26th January 1950. अब देखते हैं हम पहले यूनिटरी फीचर्स देखेंगे, उसके बाद देखेंगे फेडरल फीचर्स फ्रॉम द सेम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. ओके, सो एक तो क्या है, अल्टरेशन ऑफ स्टेट बाउंड्री बाय पार्लियामेंट, आर्टिकल 234। इसका मतलब क्या हुआ, पार्लियामेंट हैज गॉट द पावर्स टू alter the boundaries of the state, to bifurcate the states. Now I'll tell you the latest example. Latest example is that of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Recent example. अब क्या हुआ इसमें, Parliament, by exercising its constitutional power, decided to bifurcate or divide the state of Andhra Pradesh into two states, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. The matter went to their state legislature. They rejected the way it was done by the Parliament, but they had no say. Why? Because center is adopting, as per constitution, the concept of consultation and not what, concurrence. So center does not need any concurrence but can consult the states. Here ends the matter. That means it has the powers. So this is one of the unitary character. Single citizenship. There is no system of dual citizenship as we have in United States of America. You may be belonging to any state, but you will have only single citizenship, that is the citizenship of India. Now we come to legislative powers. Center supremacy. That means center has more powers, supremacy over the states as far as legislative powers are concerned. The legislative powers are the law-making powers. That means who will make the laws. Here also the center has got the upper hand. How? First thing is, there are three lists in 7th schedule of the constitution. List 1 is the union list, list 2 is the state list, and list 3 is the concurrent list. As far as list 1 is concerned, there are subjects which have been laid down where only the center has got the powers to make laws. List 2 state list, where the states have the power to make laws on the subject enlisted there. On the concurrent list, list 3, both center as well as states have the power to make laws. Now in the case, see, ours is a dynamic situation. Sometimes a situation may develop where a matter may come up before the legislature where the subject is not listed in either of the three lists, neither in list 1, list 2 or list 3. So it will become a new subject. So in that case, the residuary powers, मतलब जो powers जो लिस्ट में सब्जेक्ट नहीं है, उनके ऊपर लॉ बनाने की पावर किसके पास बच जाती है, वो है सेंटर के पास. आर्टिकल 248 में ये पावर दी गई है और 97 of list 1, item number 97 of list 1, that is the union list. So in the case of subjects which are not listed in any of the three lists, the residuary power is with the center. Again, a unitary feature. Now from articles 249 to 252. Now what are these articles? These articles deal with the subjects which are listed in the state list. That means where the states have the power to make laws. But here also, under certain circumstances, in the case of national interest, in the case of national emergency, in the case of when the states they agree, or if the two or more states come and ask the center to make laws. So these are the articles which you can just go through in detail, but I have briefly explained to you where, under what conditions the center has got the powers to make laws even on the subjects which are in the state list. So that shows the primacy of parliament. Again, a very strong unitary feature. Now, parliament will make laws. It has the exclusive power to make laws or to give effect to international treaties. इंटरनेशनल ट्रीटीज क्या है कि जब हम किसी भी और कंट्री के साथ कोई एग्रीमेंट, कोई ट्रीटी या कोई कन्वेंशन साइन करते हैं, तो इट हैज टू बी we'll study it in international law that it will come into force only when a municipal law is made. Municipal law means the law of the country is made. Okay, so we ratify that treaty and make a law on that. So that law making power is exclusively with the parliament, that is the central government. Now we come to repugnancy of laws. The central law shall prevail. कैसे? अब कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट ले लेते हैं जिसमें स्टेट को भी पावर है, सेंटर को भी पावर है. Parliament has also got the power and state legislature have also got the power to make laws. अब दोनों में क्लैश हो जाता है. Suppose the state law has got certain amount of disagreement, or there is a conflict or a clash between the state law and the law made by the parliament. In that case, the law made by the center, law made by the parliament shall prevail. Okay, so in that case, again, a very strong unitary character. Now we come to judiciary. See, our judiciary has got a very nice structure. It has got a blend of both, like the federalism as well as unitary character. As we go, see, at the state level, at the lower judiciary level, it is being, the judges are being recruited, they are being posted, and they function under the administrative control of the respective high courts, state high courts. Okay? And so that is at the state level, mostly the state will have their own judiciary. There's no All India Judicial Service as of now, though there is a provision for creation of a All India Judicial Service under Article 312 of the Constitution that we will see when we discuss the All India Services. But as of now, states, they recruit their own lower judiciary, and there is a administrative control over them. I'm not talking of the judicial control. Judicial control we will see now when we talk of the integrated judiciary. अब जुडिशरी का इंटीग्रेशन कैसे होता है? See, lower judiciary at the state level is responsible or is controlled by the high court, respective high court under Article 227. Okay, so but these high courts are in turn controlled by the apex court, the Supreme Court. And the most important part when we come to the judicial side, I have been talking about the administrative side. Now we come to the judicial side. Now there is only one single Supreme Court, and the laws interpreted, the interpretation of laws, I'm not saying making of laws. Making of laws is not the function of judiciary. It is the function of legislature. But the function of judiciary is to interpret those laws and those interpretations have the force of law, and they are, they are binding on all the courts of the country, whether they are high court or they are lower courts. It's very important. This is a unitary character as far as judiciary is concerned. Okay, so we have seen the legislature. See, there are three pillars of governance: legislature, judiciary, and executive. First, we dealt with the legislative powers in a unitary, how it is unitary as far as Indian Constitution is concerned, and now we are talking about judiciary, how it is unitary in character. See, if we take the example of United States of America, now the Supreme Court of USA, the federal court, has the power to interpret the laws, and the laws relating to only constitutional issues are binding on the courts in the states. Otherwise, the state judiciaries are independent of the Supreme Court of USA, except for the constitutional matters. Similarly, if we look at the legislative side, when we talk of, we just discussed where the parliament has got powers. So in that case, the United States Parliament doesn't have any kind of power. And similarly, in the case of judiciary, there is an independent and integral judicial system under Article 247. That means all the courts are bound by the interpretations of the laws made by the apex court of the country, that is the Supreme Court of India. So here we see the comparison between USA and Indian Supreme Court. The appellate jurisdiction includes constitutional, civil, criminal cases. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि जो अपील अराइज होती है फ्रॉम द डिसीजंस ऑफ द लोअर कोर्ट्स, फ्रॉम द हाई कोर्ट्स, द सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज गॉट द एब्सोल्यूट appellate power. It has got the original jurisdiction and it has got the appellate power to appeal, to hear appeal and decide the cases with respect to any of these, whether it is a constitutional matter, a civil matter, or a criminal matter. Whereas in USA, the appellate jurisdiction is restricted to constitutional cases only. Now, we come to another unitary character where it's of course an abnormal situation. Case of emergency. Emergency means which is not normal. When there is an abnormal situation has arisen and it has to be treated accordingly, not in a normal way. And our constitution provides for that. How? We see in case of national emergency, Article 352. I'm just telling you what are those abnormal situations. Article 356, a president rule in a state. Article 360, the financial emergency. So in all these emergency situations, what happens? Center has the extraordinary powers. What are those extraordinary powers? That center gets power to make any law on any subject, whether it is on the state list or on the concurrent list. Now we come to another important part. So we call our constitution a kind of a rigid constitution, which most written constitutions are. Why do we call it rigid? Rigid इसलिए होता है कि उसको आप easily amend नहीं कर सकते, change नहीं कर सकते उसके provisions को. पहली तो रिजिडिटी आर्टिकल 368 में ही लगा दी गई, दैट पार्लियामेंट ओनली कैन अमेंड द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक्सेप्ट अंडर वन कंडीशन विच वी विल डिस्कस a little while later. पहले हम ये समझें कि आर्टिकल 368 में अमेंडमेंट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज द prerogative of the parliament, not the state legislature. Any of the state legislature cannot make any amendment to any part of the constitution. This is the unitary feature. अब एक situation है, उसमें क्या होता है, when the different subjects are there where everybody is getting affected. Everybody, it is like, it may be preamble, it may be fundamental rights, it may be directive principles, it may be fundamental duties, it may be powers of president, powers of governor, their appointment, all India services, etc., etc. Now, these are the subjects, these are the areas of the constitution where everybody in general gets affected. The governance in general of the country gets affected. There the amending power is with the parliament. But when it comes to center-state relations, it has to be changed or amended, modified. In that case, the one half of the states, in case parliament has already passed the bill to amend the constitution, that part of the constitution which is dealing with the central state relations, that part, that amendment will have to be ratified by one half of the states. Okay? In the case of USA, in such a situation where the constitution has to be amended, the condition is that 3/4 of the states must ratify that amendment to make it effective, to make it operational. But whereas in our country, only restricted to center-state relations. Now, I have been repeatedly telling in my other lectures also, and I'll be, discussing it in more details when we discuss various functions of the government. I always say that one who controls the purse controls the jugular. Jugular होती है जो आपकी मेन आर्टरी है, जिससे ब्लड आपके ब्रेन को जाता है. ओके, इफ दैट इज चोक्ड यू विल डाई. तो फाइनेंस is the most important area of control. So, most of the financial matters, the states are depending upon the center. Okay, how? We will see. The taxes are levied and distributed between union and states under Article 270. States are always invariably starved of the फाइनेंसेस. कैसे? क्योंकि स्टेट्स के अपने रिसोर्सेज इतने नहीं होते हैं कि वो इंडिपेंडेंटली अपने फाइनेंशियल मैटर्स को, अपनी गवर्नेंस को रन कर सके, अपने गवर्नेंस को चला सके, स्टेट की गवर्नेंस को चला सके अपने क्रिएट किए हुए फंड से. तो वो हमेशा उनको जरूरत पड़ती है फाइनेंसेस की. वो फाइनेंसेस के लिए वो आते हैं सेंटर के पास, क्योंकि सेंटर के पास टैक्स लेविंग की जो पावर्स हैं वो सेंटर के पास ज्यादा है. द हाईएस्ट अमाउंट ऑफ टैक्सेस आर कलेक्टेड बाय वे ऑफ इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस एंड आल्सो डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस, मेजर पार्ट, एंड बोथ आर अंडर द कंट्रोल ऑफ द सेंटर. See the central excise, see the income tax, customs, etc. So all these major revenue generation mechanism are under the control of the center. And states have got only limited ways of tax collection. पहले GST आने से पहले वो था सेल्स टैक्स था, स्टेट सेल्स टैक्स, स्टेट एक्साइज, एंटरटेनमेंट टैक्स एंड सम लोकल टैक्सेस, ऑक्ट्राई हो गया एटसेट्रा. सो दीज काइंड ऑफ टैक्सेस, these were the only resources, these are rather the only resources of financial resources of the states, and with those resources they can't run the administration of the state, they have to come to the center. So taxes are levied by the union and the states and they are distributed. Study article 270 in detail. Then 275 is again very important, grants by the union. ग्रांट्स दी जाती है. ग्रांट्स का मतलब क्या होता है कि जो अमाउंट आपने वापस नहीं करना है, स्टेट को वापस नहीं करना, एक बार ग्रांट दे दिया तो वो उनकी किटी में चला गया फॉर रनिंग द अफेयर्स ऑफ द स्टेट. इट विल नॉट बी रिटर्न टू द सेंटर और द गिवर. आर्टिकल 280 इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. देयर इज ए फाइनेंस कमीशन. फाइनेंस कमीशन क्या है? फाइनेंस कमीशन डिसाइड्स और रिकमेंड्स on the it doesn't decide but it recommends the share of the states, how much share will go to whom. See, earlier when we had the planning commission, I'm just giving you some other aspect, is when there was planning commission before Niti Aayog came into being, replaced planning commission. उस टाइम क्या होता था? स्टेट की एलोकेशन की जाती थी बाय द प्लानिंग कमीशन. देयर वर 5-year plans and then there were annual allocation to each and every state in consultation with basically with the state chief ministers. So that system has been changed, but finance commission is still there and it decides, it recommends on the shares of the states, which the center will ultimately take a decision on that. Another important point is appointment of governor by the center. President appoints the governor. You know, governor has it has a fixed tenure of 5 years, but then it is at the, he or she can be removed at any time by the president. President appoints them, but how president acts? He acts on the advice of the aid and advice of the council of ministers. So basically it is the decision of the central government as to whom they have to appoint the governor, but the order is issued by the president of India. Now what happens is, what is the role of a governor? We'll study when we talk about the powers of the governor. It's a separate topic in our syllabus. But here we see that governor he's the constitutional head of a state, appointed by the president, constitutional head of the state, and then he, on his recommendation only, his reports only to the president, that whether the state is being run constitutionally as per the provisions of the constitution or not. If it is not, then president's rule can be imposed. But governor has a very important part as far as governance of the state is concerned, and then he is being appointed by the president, by the center basically, and then he can be removed, he can be replaced, can be shifted, he can be given additional charge of other states. By whom? Not by the state government, by the central government. In the case of Sarkaria Commission, if you remember, Sarkaria Commission recommended that the governor should be appointed after consultation with the state government, the chief ministers. But it never happened. So it's a very, very important unitary feature. Establishment of All India Services, Article 312. Now, what is the role of All India Services? आप भी बनने जा रहे हैं IAS, IPS, IFS. तो क्या रोल होता है इनका? They are appointed by the president, they are appointed by the center on the recommendation, of course, of the UPSC. They are allotted state cadres and they work in the states. So there's a dual kind of a control. The day-to-day control, administrative control is with the state government, whereas their services, their appointment, their service, their empanelment, their deputations, their other service conditions, termination, suspension, etc. Suspension may be done by the state government, but then it has to be ratified by the central government. Their extension of service, etc. Everything is being controlled by the center. Article 312. Now, how a new All India service is created. See, I mentioned about the All India Judicial Service. What happens is the Rajya Sabha, the upper house, has to recommend creation of a new All India service. So, Parliament, it is initiated in the Parliament, in the upper house, and then a new All India service is created. All India service means they have the liability to serve anywhere in the country, and they are controlled by their administrative control is a kind of a dual control by the state government as well as the central government, but primarily by the central government. Again, a very, very unitary feature. We have seen in the Government of India Act 1990, the All India services were created. The same kind of pattern we have followed, but we have changed the names now. Now we call it Indian Administrative Service, we call it Indian Police Service, Indian Forest Service, etc. Okay, but there's a talk of All India Judicial Service also. So these are the services which now we are coming to the executive. See, we have seen the legislative functions, we have seen the judicial functions, we are now discussing the executive functions. So, and there is a provision of interstate council. ये क्या होती है interstate council? ये states को एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे लाया जाता है, उनकी discussions होती हैं. Okay, there is a provision of interstate council relations between the states, but again appointed by the center. Its constitution, its meetings, the deliberations are all held under the aegis of the center. So again, a unitary fact. Appointment of the authority to regulate freedom of trade, commerce, and intercourse. Now there is a interstate trade and commerce. Read Article 307, and there is a provision for appointment of an authority to be a regulatory authority for the interstate trade and commerce. Executive power of states governed by union laws. So, different executive powers have been given to the union government. So, executive powers of the states are governed by the union laws. All these are the executive powers which have got the unitary character. Now we come to the federal features. अब हमने एक साइड देख ली कि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में यूनिटरी कैरेक्टर्स कौन कौन से हैं broadly, okay, on all the three sides. Now we will examine the federal features. What are these federal features? States are sovereign in their own sphere. कैसे? Power of states to legislate on matter listed in the state list. I have already mentioned list 2. List in 7 schedule clearly demarcate the boundaries of center and the state. तो जो लिस्ट में सब्जेक्ट्स दिए गए हैं, जैसे we take the case of law and order. Law and order is a state subject. So there's a provision of You know Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, how it functions? It derives its powers from Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1948. अब उसमें क्या है, उसमें what is there in that DSP Act? There has to be the permission of the state to allow CBI to function in their state. I think section 6. Okay. So in that case, even a central premier investigating agency has to get permission from the state to operate in their territory, though it's a central agency. But on the other hand, we will see that how NIA has been created by a NIA Act. There are special acts, preventive detention acts, etc. TADA, POTA were there, and now also we have the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and we have Armed Forces Special Powers Act, where those are exceptions. Will come to that, but the general principle is that in the case of state and center, the powers have been clearly demarcated in this list, and the origin of this list is we have followed. Why do we call it that our constitution is like a cherry picking? Because when the framers of the constitution, that is the Constituent Assembly, when they decided to frame our present constitution, they decided to have the best features from every other constitution. Kaise? They picked up, like, I'm coming to the state list, the division of powers from the Canadian Constitution, the creation of concurrent list from the Australian Constitution. So they tried to pick up the best features from whatever constitutions were available globally and incorporate them and put them in our constitution. So in the case of this Jindal, I have already mentioned the law and order is a state subject, land is a state subject, some taxes are being levied and collected by the states. These are very important issues. हम कहते हैं ना, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर भी स्टेट का सब्जेक्ट है, आप जानिए आपकी स्टेट में क्या हो रहा है. So you have to control it. State police is directly under the control of the state government. They function under them. But then there is an element of Indian Police Service and All India Service. We'll see that. So dual polity. अब क्या है, हम देखते हैं कि जो लोकसभा है, how the parliament is constituted. We have two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In the case of Lok Sabha, how the members come to Lok Sabha, they come through a direct election. Okay? It is conducted by the Election Commission of India, of course appointed by the center, but they represent their own constituencies in the various states spread over all over India. Rajya Sabha, that is also called the Council of States. Why it is called Council of States? Because there are state representatives. They are not directly elected. They are elected by the members of their state legislative assemblies. So they are representing the states in the center. It's a very good example of federalism. Federal character of constitution cannot be amended. Now we come to a very important part, that is how judiciary has interpreted federalism. How judiciary has been treating the concept of federalism. They have made it a basic structure of the constitution. Remember Keswaran Bharati case? What was held in that case? That Parliament has got absolute power to amend any part of the constitution, including preamble, including fundamental rights, etc., anything. But it should not alter or disturb the basic structure of the constitution. और सबसे बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बात क्या है कि फेडरलिज्म हैज बीन ट्रीटेड एज ए basic structure. That is a very, very strong interpretation even from the judiciary, that our constitution has got a very strong federal character. So Article 368(2), I have already explained that any amendment which affects the center-state relations must be ratified, must be cleared by the state legislature of one half. At least. Again, independent state judicial services. I have already explained that every state has got its own judicial services. So this is an element of federal character. Now we come to a very, very important judgment, interpretation in S.R. Bommai case, landmark case. क्या कहते हैं उसमें? It would thus seem that the Indian Constitution has in it not only features of a pragmatic federalism, which, while distributing legislative powers and indicating the spheres of governmental powers of the state and central governments, is overlaid by strongly unitary features. अब यहाँ पे हम थोड़ा थोड़ा shape लेना शुरू करें, having understood the unitary characteristics of the Constitution on one hand and the federal characters of the Constitution on the other hand. We are now coming to the landmark judgments, how the judiciary interprets this, that it has got strong unitary features also. This has been reiterated recently in the Delhi वाले केस में, NCT of Delhi, State NCT of Delhi वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया, मोस्ट रिसेंट केस 2018 का है. अब हम आते हैं नेचर ऑफ इंडियन फेडरलिज्म. हमारे फेडरलिज्म का नेचर क्या है? हमारे इंडियन फेडरलिज्म का नेचर एक प्योर फेडरेशन की तरह नहीं है. कैसे नहीं है? व्हाट डज आर्टिकल 1 से? द वेरी फर्स्ट आर्टिकल ऑफ आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया, India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. ये देखिए, ये union of states. It is not because of any agreement between the constituents, between the states, between the various provinces, Rajwade, princely states, etc. No. The princely states had signed the letter of annexation. Annexation क्या होता है कि that you finish your identity and you get into a new identity. उसमें विलय हो जाए आपका, अब उसमें मिल जाए. जैसे एक नदी समुंदर में मिल जाती, उस तरह से ये जो प्रिंसली स्टेट्स थे, प्रोविंसेस तो थे ही, they became the states, like United Province became the Uttar Pradesh, like state of Madras became the Tamil Nadu, later on divided Andhra, there was like that. So provinces were automatically, they became the part of the union. लेकिन यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स, जो प्रिंसली स्टेट्स थे वो कैसे हुए? वो उन्होंने अलग आइडेंटिटी नहीं रखी अपनी. They were not allowed to have any separate identity by India Independence Act of 1947. Yes, they had to sign the instrument of annexation. Annexation that okay, अब से हम एक इंटीग्रल पार्ट ऑफ यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया बन गए. That means अभिन्न अंग बन गए हम भारत का. India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. No agreement, no treaty, nothing. Once you are a part of it, you have no right. उसमें समा गए आप. You cannot exceed, you cannot secede, you cannot go anywhere. So this is what is the beauty, nature of Indian federalism. पहले तो विलय हो गया. फिर मैंने वही कहा, फेडरलिज्म पार्ट ऑफ बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर हो गया. नाउ इट इज नॉट एब्सोल्यूट फेडरलिज्म. क्यों नहीं है एब्सोल्यूट फेडरलिज्म? पहले हमने देखा there are strong unitary characters through various provisions of the constitution. Decentralization of authority is there. States have been given certain amount of authority and autonomy, but state cannot amend the constitution. Okay, national policies and local governance executed by center and individual states respectively. See, everybody, it is a kind of a national integration that states cannot work. They have to work together in the interest, in the national interest. Whatever is not in the national interest is not acceptable. So the states have to work accordingly. Their governance has to be done in such a manner that the national interest is primary. It is the first and the foremost principle. Supreme power to the judiciary to invalidate any law if it violates constitution. Doctrine of ultra virus. State of West Bengal. ये क्या होता है? Ultra virus is beyond powers. So if any state, if any action, if any law, executive action, or if any law violates the constitution, then it will be struck down. It is subjected to judicial review, judicial scrutiny. And if judiciary says no, it is ultra virus of the constitution, it will be struck down. Now we come to a very important topic. इस पे क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है और बड़ा ही important है. I think this concept you must understand very clearly. That is कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म एंड कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म. अब देखिए, कोई भी रिलेशनशिप होती है ना, वो दो तरह से होती है, आई मीन बिटवीन डिफरेंट एंटिटीज. एक होती है हॉरिजॉन्टल, उनके आपस में लिंक एक लेवल पे, देयर इज अ लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड एंड दे प्ले ऑन दैट, दे वर्क इन टेंडम, एक दूसरे के साथ मिलके काम करते हैं. दैट्स ए हॉरिजॉन्टल रिलेशनशिप. And that horizontal relationship is cooperative federalism. है अलग अलग यूनिट्स, इसीलिए फेडरलिज्म वर्ड यूज किया गया है, लेकिन दे वर्क टुगेदर, दे वर्क इन कोऑपरेशन विद ईच अदर फॉर व्हाट? इन द नेशनल इंटरेस्ट. सो दे आर obliged, center and state share a horizontal relationship. Union and states are constitutionally obliged to कोऑपरेट. अब इसका एक ग्लेरिंग एग्जांपल है जीएसटी, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज टैक्स. सारी स्टेट्स ने, सेंटर ने मिलके एक डिसीजन लिया कि स्टेट के जो सेल्स टैक्स है, स्टेट की जो टैक्सेस है, और जो सेंटर के सेल्स टैक्स है, सीएसटी और सेल्स टैक्स है, उनको हम मिला के एक जीएसटी, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज टैक्स बनाएंगे. So a law was passed. A GST council has been formed where all the state representatives are the members. तो वो क्या करते हैं? Now GST is collected and the GST shares are as agreed between the council, between the member states. All the states are, of course, a member of this council, GST council. They decide how much share and the modalities of distribution of the GST tax collected. Now, how recently we had the unfortunate, we had to face the unfortunate demise of a great personality, the Bharat Ratna Pranab Mukherjee, the former president. He gave a beautiful statement, on his farewell. What he said was, the passage of the government's flagship goods and services tax is a shining example of cooperative federalism. इतनी महान हस्ती ने भी देखिए कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म को कितनी इंपॉर्टेंस दी और एक एग्जाम्पल देके बोला. that speaks volumes of the maturity of parliament. That means our democracy, our parliament, our parliamentary system, and our constitution, because parliament exists because of the constitution, that is the supreme law of the land. And every organ works according to the provisions of the constitution. That means our constitution has reached that kind of maturity that we are now a shining example of cooperative federalism by way of, one of the examples is of course the GST. अब और देखते हैं हम कैसा है कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म में. आर्टिकल 252, provision for enabling parliament to legislate in state area on the request of two or more states. I have already mentioned they are in the constitution. That means two or more states, if they want center to make a law for them, center will make. It's a cooperation. Article 307, creation of agencies for the purpose of 301, वो जो मैंने कहा था आपका ट्रेड कॉमर्स एंड उसके लिए जो इंटरस्टेट ट्रेड कॉमर्स है उसके लिए एक एजेंसी बनाने के लिए देयर इज अ प्रोविजन. आर्टिकल 261, फुल फेथ एंड क्रेडिट क्लॉज. 312, establishment of all India services on recommendation of Rajya Sabha. 260, the establishment of interstate council. 275, to grants from the union to the states, already discussed. Zonal councils, like we have Northeast Council, etc. Indian Federation is an example of cooperative federalism. India has created a strong central government. It has not made the state governments weak. कोऑपरेटिव जहां सिस्टम होता है वहां कोई स्ट्रॉन्ग, कोई पावरफुल, कोई वीक नहीं होता. दे ऑल वर्क टुगेदर इन द नेशनल इंटरेस्ट. दिस इज व्हाट हैज बीन स्टेटेड बाय ग्रैनविले ऑस्टिन एंड मेंशन्ड इन स्टेट ऑफ राजस्थान वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया 1977 में. ये चीजें आपको बहुत ही अच्छी तरह से समझनी चाहिए क्योंकि ये आपके आंसर का एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट होने वाली है इफ देयर इज अ क्वेश्चन ऑन कोऑपरेटिव एंड कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म और कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म. नाउ वी कम टू द अदर पार्ट, कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म. क्या होता है कोऑपरेटिव में? देखा, देयर इज अ हॉरिजॉन्टल रिलेशनशिप दैट दे वर्क इन टेंडम. They work in consultation with each other. They surrender certain powers. They make certain kind of adjustments in the national interest. They surrender some of their powers and give that decision-making authority to the central. So that is their cooperative federalism. But now there is the other side of that also. That is the competitive federalism. कंपटीशन का मतलब क्या है कि आप एक दूसरे से compete कर रहे हो. अभी क्या हुआ, जैसे 1990s में we saw an era of globalization, liberalization. We opened our borders, we opened our markets for global players so that they can come, establish themselves here, do their business, and the economy should grow. We call it, through FDI, foreign direct investment. We call it, by different name. So that the foreign capital comes here, foreign technology comes here, we become a part of a global market. So in that case, what happens? States have got different resources. किसी स्टेट में मिनरल्स हैं, किसी स्टेट में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर स्ट्रांग है, किसी स्टेट में स्किल्ड लेबर अवेलेबल है. So all these states get into a kind of a competition to attract that kind of investment in their respective states so that the state progresses economically and otherwise. So in that case what happens? वो एक होड़ लग जाती है, आपस में कंपटीशन बन जाता है. और वो कंपटीशन कैसे होता है? बिटवीन द स्टेट्स, डिफरेंट यूनिट्स, एंड समटाइम्स मे बी बिटवीन सेंटर एंड द स्टेट्स टू. That in one area, center is interested that there should be, the FDI should come to a particular area which is controlled by the center, maybe defense, maybe railways, maybe any other communication, telecommunication. But in some areas like local industrial development or trade and commerce, the state may be interested or they may be competing with other states. So there is a spirit of competition between the states and also between states and the center. I mean, among the states and between the states and the center. So in that case, there is a vertical relationship. पहले horizontal था, अब vertical हो गया कि आप अपनी जगह अपने vertical पे हैं, हम अपने vertical पे हैं, हम compete कर रहे हैं एक दूसरे के साथ फेडरलिज्म के अंदर, फेडरलिज्म के दायरे में. नाउ कैसे हुआ? पोस्ट 1990s में हुआ. फ्री मार्केट इकोनॉमी, एंडोमेंट्स ऑफ स्टेट्स, अवेलेबल रिसोर्स बेस, देयर comparative advantages, a spirit of competition, increasing globalization, which I explained to you now. Now competitive federalism को हमने एक states need to compete among themselves and also with the center. States compete with each other to attract funds and investment, facilitates efficiency in administration. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि ultimately if the capital comes to a state and there is an industrial development, there is a growth in trade and commerce, it is ultimately in our national interest. It's not only the state is flourishing, state is benefiting, but it is ultimately the country is benefiting. So, enhances developmental activities. When there is an increase in development, the GDP will increase and overall development of the country will be there. Healthy competition strives to improve physical and social infrastructure within the state. अब अगर एक healthy competition है, like a particular state has invited, let us say, Hyundai to set up a unit, car making unit or an ancillary unit in their state. तो उससे क्या होगा? Employment generation होगी, plus infrastructure development होगा, because that state has to provide them the good infrastructure for their operations. अब आप ये देखिए, now we come to how is India. We are, coining a new term, quasi-federal. ये कहीं नहीं है. It's not written anywhere in the Constitution. अब आप मजे की बात देखिए. The interesting part is nowhere in the Constitution, Indian Constitution, these words are mentioned. Unitary, federal, quasi-federal, कहीं नहीं लिखा हुआ. So then how do we know what is the characteristic of our constitution? This is the question which will not only bother us as students, but also bother the examiners, and they will ask us in the examination. If there's no mention of any of these three terms, then how do you reach? How do you conclude that Indian Constitution is either unitary or federal or quasi-federal? How do you reach that? By understanding, by analyzing the various features of the Constitution, which we have already discussed today. तो हम देखते हैं हमें क्या क्या यूनिक फीचर्स हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, जो उसको यूनिटरी की तरफ भी ले जाते हैं, फेडरल की तरफ भी ले जाते हैं, और इसको अभी हम देखेंगे. ओके, सो प्राइमरी अब क्या आता है? सी द पर्सन, द जूरिस्ट हु coined this term was Professor Vere. What he said was, in practice, the Constitution of India is quasi-federal in nature and not strictly federal. अभी आपने देख लिया कि फेडरल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स भी हैं, यूनिटरी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स भी है, बट एक चीज बड़ी अच्छी कही डी बासु ने भी कहा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया इज नाइदर प्योरली फेडरल नॉर यूनिटरी बट इट इज ए कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ बोथ. ये क्या बात हुई? यस, देयर इज a blend of the two. Our constitution is unique in the aspect that it has got the features of both the unitary and the federalism. वो हमने देख लिया क्या क्या फीचर्स हैं. मेनली there may be others which I think you have to study, and you can go through our notes on that and you will find the answers there in more details. एक स्टेटमेंट बहुत अच्छी रही कि इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अगर आप देखा जाए, इट इज फेडरल, प्राइमरीली फेडरल इन कैरेक्टर, बट इट हैज गॉट ए स्ट्रॉन्ग यूनिटरी सोल, यूनिटरी टच, यूनिटरी टिल्ट, क्योंकि दोनों के कैरेक्टर बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है. बट बेसिक चीज जो हमारी जुडिशरी ने भी एक्सेप्ट की कि फेडरलिज्म इज द बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर. It forms part of the basic structure of the constitution, but with strong unitary characteristics. तो क्या हो गया, हम एक कह सकते हैं कि अगर फेडरलिज्म एक बॉडी है इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की, हमारी गवर्नेंस की, तो यूनिटरी इज द सोल. So in the state of West Bengal, the apex court held the decentralization of authority in India was primarily to facilitate smooth governance of a large nation. हमें फेडरलिज्म की जरूरत क्यों पड़ी? बिकॉज वी आर ए लार्ज नेशन विद लॉट ऑफ डाइवर्सिटी एंड देयरफॉर इट कंटेन्स मैनी सेंट्रलाइजिंग फीचर्स. वी आल्सो नीड टू कीप our country together, not fragmented. See what happened in the Constituent Assembly, why the word federalism was not inserted in the Constitution. Because immediately after the partition, the constitution was to be made. So during that, the Constituent Assembly had deliberated on this, whether we should put this particular term federalism or not, because there were several units which were to be knitted together, which had to be put together. So उस केस में if we put federalism, then there was a inherent or a hidden, I should say, danger of disintegration, fragmentation. उनके अलग होने के चांसेस बन जाते हैं if you label it as a federal, truly federal constitution. So to counter that, they had put some strong unitary character in the constitution itself to make it a very, very balanced kind of a constitution. So एसआर बोमेई में क्या कहा? सो इट इज नॉट ए ट्रेडिशनल फेडरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. बोमेई में फिर क्या कहा गया? पॉइंट द एसेंस ऑफ फेडरेशन इज द एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ पावर बिटवीन यूनियन एंड द स्टेट. हाउएवर द एब्सेंस ऑफ टर्म्स फेडरल और फेडरेशन एंड द प्रेजेंस ऑफ यूनिटरी फीचर्स such as residuary powers, single citizenship, integrated judiciary, etc., can help us conclude that the Constitution of India is more quasi-federal. ये जुडिशरी ने भी मान लिया. Because of these reasons, then federal or unitary, secular, socialist, democratic republic. तो ये दोनों में से कोई वर्ड ना प्रीएम्बल में यूज किया गया, ना बॉडी ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में यूज किया गया. Chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, our constitution would be both unitary as well as federal according to the requirements of time and circumstances. I again and again, whenever I talk of constitution, I say Constitution of India is a living constitution. It has to keep pace with the changing circumstances along with the time. इसीलिए 100 से ज़्यादा हमारे अमेंडमेंट्स हो चुके हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, आगे भी होंगे, बिकॉज फॉर एवरी चेंजिंग सिचुएशन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हैज आल्सो कीप ए पेस विद दैट, एंड दिस हैड बीन even visualized by none other than the framers of the constitution itself. Now, friends, I have tried to put the maximum inputs and contents and to simplify the things so that they are quite understandable to not only to the law students but also to the general students who are not opting for law, for their understanding of the subject, of the topic. Now I am switching over my attention to the aspirants who are opting for law as an optional subject in the mains examination. I have done a lot of, I should say, hard work on that. Now, I have analyzed various questions which have been previously asked by UPSC as part of the law optional subject in the paper 1. And I have, designed my contents and my lecture, my guidance session to you based on these questions so that you don't miss out on any of these aspects and you are able to write a good answer if you have understood the contents today properly. If you haven't, I am available on bandbyias.com. You can always reach me and put your queries to me and I'll try to give you the proper answers to your queries. Let us take these questions. There are about 15 questions. See how important is this particular topic as far as law optional paper is concerned. You can't ignore it. Though it's not written as a separate topic, but look, almost every year a question is being asked. Very important topic, so concentrate on that. Explain the concept of federalism as incorporated in Indian Constitution. 2016 में ये क्वेश्चन पूछा गया है. Very important. Constitution of India is not true to any traditional pattern of federation. Comment. 2007. If you have understood the concept of federation, you will be able to answer this in a very, very effective way. What do you think is the form nature of constitution? Federal, unitary or quasi-federal? The members of drafting committee call it federal, but many others will dispute this title. Critically examine. अब why do they write critically examine? Critical का मतलब होता है कि whatever statement is given in the question, you must give both the pros and cons. Both the sides of the problem, both the sides of the issue. फेडरलिज्म है तो फेडरलिज्म का ये हिस्सा भी दिखाना है आपको, दूसरा हिस्सा भी दिखाना है, and then you have to give a balanced answer whether you agree with this statement or not. And if you agree with, you have to give your reasons for that. If you disagree, you have to give your own reasons for that. But in the question, in the answer itself, in the body of the answer, you have to write both the sides. Okay. So what is the nature of Indian Constitution? Do you think it is federal constitution? Discuss. When it comes to discuss, you have to concentrate on what is being asked and then stick to that. Discuss only that part. Don't go here and there. The Indian Constitution is essentially federal in character, though it tends to be unitary at times. Again, comment. You have to explain this. Constitution of India is neither purely federal or nor purely unitary, but is a combination of both. Discuss. Examine critically the view of Professor Vere that we have already studied this. What do you understand by the? Now I come to this particular question. I wanted to discuss this question with you because this has been covered, cooperative federalism and competitive federalism. Please answer this. I wanted to come to this. Differentiate between federal constitution and federal government. अब यहाँ पे आपको थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन स्टूडेंट को हो सकता है कि इन दोनों में क्या फर्क है. The examiner is asking about differentiating the two terms federal constitution and federal government. So what is the difference between the two? Very simple. Please try to understand गवर्नमेंट कौन बनाता है, कैसे बनती है, who controls the structure of the government, the functioning of the government, the accountability of the government. It is the constitution. If the constitution is federal, the government will be federal government. But our constitution is not purely federal. So accordingly the governance has to be different. So दोनों में difference क्या है? Federal constitution lays down the principles, the structure, and the overall functioning of the governance of the country, whereas federal government is the central government, and then the states legislatures. So how that relationship is there? What are the principles laid down in federal constitution, and how they differentiate between the two? One gives the framework, other gives the functioning. Okay, so based on judicial pronouncements and your perception of the working of our constitution, comment whether India has a federal government or a federal constitution. तो आपको आंसर क्या देना है कि we don't have a purely federal constitution. We have a kind of a blend of the two, federal and unitary, and accordingly the governance has also to be like that as per the provisions of the constitution. The Indian federal structure has brought in some novel provisions which are not to be found in other federations. आपको फिर कंपेयर करना पड़ेगा, like federation कहाँ पर है? In USA, in Switzerland, you have referendum. In USA, the constitution, if it has to be amended, has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states, etc. Germany is a example of federation. So, and if it comes to unitary, you have to say UK. Now, critically discuss. अब इसमें क्या है कि what are those novel provisions which are not to be found in other. That means these novel provisions are the unitary features which are not to be found in the other federations. Federalism has in recent years witnessed a change from the dogmatic to dynamic approach. Discuss the changing approach and point out the main deviations in the working of the Constitution of India. How it is? I said it's a living constitution, it's a dynamic constitution. There have been changes, there have been amendments, and we are keeping pace with that, keeping in mind the basic characteristics of federalism, also a unitary soul in that. A federal government is a legalistic government, a characteristic feature of which is the allocation of powers between the center and states. Explain the provisions regarding the center-state relation in the fields of legislation and administration. We have already discussed. What do you understand by independence of judiciary? Judiciary is not under the control of the either legislature or under the control of the executive. They are independent in their functioning, right? Starting from the collegium system where they appoint the judges, they transfer the judges, they control the lower judiciary, and they interpret any law, any executive order. The definition of law is there in Article 13, which I have already discussed in my earlier video, that any of these have to go to, are subject to judicial review if there is a need. And the basic test, the test of conforming to basic structure of the Constitution has to be decided by none other than the judiciary. Okay? So friends, with this I conclude my discussion today. If you have any issues, any problems, any queries, any gaps you find, or you want further clarifications, you are welcome to visit our site www.bnbyias.com, and you can even email to me and subscribe to our channel on the YouTube. You will keep on getting such informative videos from me and from my other faculty on various subjects. I'll be dealing mostly the topics relating to either law optional or polity in the general studies. But other subjects also, you will be very soon getting some motivational videos from former civil servants and even the serving civil servants very soon. Thank you very much.
For more videos, subscribe to BN by IAS and press the bell icon to never miss an update.